So would Hawks Prairie Rotarians and Hawks Prairie Rotarians only please stand?
All right. We're the Rotary Club of Hawks Prairie, and we're glad you're here today. We'll laugh a little and learn a little. We're friends while you're away. The service is our motto, both here and overseas. Where there is need, there's Rotary, serving humanity. Rotary, Hawks Prairie Rotary. When you're in town, come around. You're part of our family. You're part of our family. Medley, excuse me. It'll be a melody.
It is a medley of songs.
So, all right, everybody ready?
Yeah. Are you ready?
I am. Over hill, over dale, we will hit the dusty trail as the caissons go rolling along. In and out, here's a shout, counter marching right about as the caissons go rolling along. Then it's high, high, hey, and feel artillery. Shout out your landlords loud and strong. 2, 3, 4. Wherever you go, you will always know that the caissons go rolling along. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we will fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marines. Anchors aweigh, my boys, anchors aweigh. Farewell to college joy, we'll sail at break of day. Our last night ashore, train to the foe. To the foe! Until we meet once more, here's wishing you a happy voyage home. We're always ready for the call. We place our trust in thee. The earth and storm and howling gale, God shall our purpose be. Semper Paratus is our guide, our fame and glory too. To fight, to save, to fight and die. Our coach, we are here for you. On we go, it's the flag blue yonder, flying high into the sun. Here they come, soon to beat our thunder. Attaboys, give them the gun. Give them the gun now. And on the knives, how you play from under. Off in one terrible course. We live in vain, go down in flame. Hey, nothing will stop the U.S. Air Force. And that's it.
Well, thank you, Corey, and welcome to our 12th annual Veterans Day Recognition Program. Hawks Prairie Rotary has been chartered for 12 years, and every year we've saluted veterans, which we're going to do today. Coming, the program today, as usual, we're going to start with a little commemorative video to honor veterans, and then we'll have each of the veterans who are here or active duty, even actually Dave's going to talk separately. Tell us a little bit about when and where they served and what they did. Hopefully you can keep it to 2 or 3 minutes. We don't have everybody here today, but we should have a good program. It's always interesting to hear the experiences of people who serve to protect our country. Corey, can we show the tribute to our veterans?
Cause I don't need boxes wrapped in strings, and the someplace simple where we can live, and something only you can give. And let's breathe just in peace while we're alive. And the one poor child who saved this world, and it's 10 million more who probably could, if we all just stopped and said a prayer for them. So take these words and say it out loud, 'cause every word is spoken now. 'Cause tonight's the day the world begins again.
During that conflict. And it's continued on to today, so it's been almost 100 years of honoring veterans. And you know, veterans serve, we've all served who are veterans, to protect our country and our liberty and the Constitution. And you know, even with all of the dysfunctionalism of our government recently, it's been very frustrating. The one enduring institution that has actually exemplifies America and the protection of our freedoms has been our military. And I think that all of us who have served can be proud because it's an enduring institution. It saved our butts in 6 major conflicts that most of us, many of us have seen. I know that Sarah Mednick's grandparents are here, he's been here before, but Ernie served in World War II, so it'll be interesting to hear from him again. So with that, we're going to go around and have an opportunity to hear of the veterans or active duty people who are here, except for maybe Dave, who's going to talk about himself later. You know, when were you in the service? What branch were you in? Where were you stationed? And what you did. If you can keep it to 2 or 3 minutes, then Dave will have time to speak. So I'm going to start myself. My name is Randy Luke. I enlisted in the Army in 1964, and that was a time when the Vietnam buildup was occurring. I enlisted as a military payroll specialist, served in Korea for a year with the 7th Division in Cheongdam, Korea, about 7 miles north, 10 miles south of the DMZ. Then I transferred to the 5th Corps headquarters in Frankfurt, Germany, and I was the Corps personnel sergeant there until I got out of the Army. One of the things that I remember as my duty as an on-call NCO for personnel was to file what's called a Blue Bell report. This was 49 years ago. And a Blue Bell report, which I still believe is in existence today, maybe in a different format, is what it reminded us last month during the shutdown, where you heard about military soldiers who were killed in action and their dependent spouses do not receive their $100,000 guaranteed allotment for dying in the service. And so The military has a system. Back when I was a personnel sergeant, it was called the Blue Bell Report. And even though I was in a non-combat area, any dependent serving overseas is included, has to be reported to the Department of Defense within 24 hours after the death. And in many cases, in my experience, it was for stillborn children of military that were born in the big hospital in Frankfurt. So that's my experience, and I'm going to pass it on and start with...
Thank you. I'm Joseph Bollier. I served in the Army Security Agency from 1967 through 1971, and in the reserves for 2 or 3 years after that. My main purpose in the Army Security Agency was communications intelligence. And my job when I was stationed in Vietnam, attached to the 82nd Airborne, was to find out where the enemy was sending Morse code from, and then triangulate it and determine what was going on there. And then after that, my best duty station was actually the Presidio of Monterey in California, going to the language. I spent 50 weeks in Language Institute there learning North Vietnamese. And then and then what they tried to do is send me back to Vietnam to fly in an airplane and locate where and triangulate where enemy were doing voice and communicating with one another. They call it ARDF, and that was an interesting time. And so, anyway, once I got out, I went to graduate school, and the rest is history. Pat?
Yeah, you get to see the Seahawks. This is Seahawks Friday, according to my wife, so we have to wear these. Got to show the colors. I graduated from Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo and received a commission as a second lieutenant in the military police force. My first duty assignment was Fort Ord. From there, I had friends, I guess, because they sent me to Ethiopia for an overseas school. That was also an ASA assignment like Joseph's. It was a listening post on top of the world almost, as far as we were concerned, in the Southeast Asia. From there, I went to my career course, and at that time it was, if you hadn't been to Vietnam, you're going in. If you had, you've got a year at least back home. So I went to Vietnam. I was with the MP battalion, and then an MP company, and we got reassigned to Army Reserve duty as an advisor in the San Jose area of California. From there, I got tired of it and volunteered to go back to Vietnam. At which time I got to work with people that wore little black pajamas and things like that.
On our side.
Yeah, they were on our side because we were paying them, that's why. For 3 or 4 months, I would go to these villages and hamlets and observe the payroll being distributed and sign off that I had seen all this. And I finally asked somebody, why was I doing this? And I was told, well, the CIA is paying them and we have to verify the pay. Okay, so I finished my tour in Vietnam and then went to Fort Riley, Kansas, and they had a RIP program, and I volunteered not to want to go out, but they told me I had to leave. So I went back to the Santa Cruz, California area and worked as an Army Reserve technician for a while, and then got a job up at Fort Lewis with commissary systems, but still stayed with the reserves and wandered around to various summer camps and everything. But after 22 years in the reserves, 11 years active duty, I finally retired at that time as a full colonel, and have enjoyed retirement ever since. And that's about all I can tell you.
I'm only 39, I joined when I was 2. I graduated from Lincoln High School of Seattle, because you always have to say that. Because it's not Lincoln, it's Tacoma.
Go Lynx.
Go Lynx. And I looked around, and I'm a dirty little Irish girl from North Seattle. And I had a 2.6 grade average.
All right.
UW wasn't calling. And my mother and father didn't have money to send me to school, and every day I went to work, I walked by the recruiting office on 2nd and Pike, and I looked at the Marine. He had a big picture window, and I went, yeah, that one. And then I went in one day. I just went in. And I passed by the Marine office, looked in the Army office, fat guy, cup of coffee, smoking a cigarette. No. Looked in the Air Force office.
Pretty blue uniform.
Yeah, it's always Blue Friday in our house. And then I looked in the Navy office, and there was this gorgeous, gorgeous guy standing there in his Cracker Jack uniform, and the angels sang, and I was 17, and I wasn't very smart, but I had good taste in men. And he said, what can I do for you? And I said, how far can you send me and how fast? He said, I can send you to Orlando in a week, and he did. And the second day in Orlando, I knew I'd made a huge mistake. The Navy was not for me, but I did it. I made it, and they kept saying, Sullivan, you're not going to make it. I worked on the West Coast on tugboats. Yes, they called me Tugboat Annie. Let's see. And then I went to Australia. The furthest out in Australia, and Australia's a long way away, but we were as far out in Australia as you could be. But all I wanted to do was come home. So I came home, and I went to Navy Reserve because I was at the UW, and who could afford those books? And I was on the Montgomery Jag Bell, and it was a sea lift organization, and we took a field trip to McChord Air Force Base. And they said, you want to see the world? And I went, yeah, I do. So I went to school to fix airplanes. I fixed C-141 Starlifters. I was an avionics technician, least likely mechanic you ever met in your life. And I went to Charleston Air Force Base for a guy. This is not a pattern. There's a couple other steps in between. All the while getting my college degree, worked on 141s there, and then I moved down to New Orleans, married the guy, and I worked on 810 Thunderbolt 2s. They call them Warthogs. They're the coolest freaking airplane ever. Little different working on them than on a 141, but I finished my degree in communications at Louisiana State University, and don't give me any crap, it's still purple and gold, okay? The Tigers. I went to college with Shaq. I graduated with Shaq. Isn't that something I never saw? And there's 6,000 people went to that school, but I always tell people that.
Yeah.
So I got my commission, and I had an opportunity, an opportunity to commission after I got my degree. I walked in, and a foolish commander agreed to it. He said, we don't need any more officers in the Air Force. The only reason we need officers is to keep the enlisted people from stealing the TVs. And finally I went, am I doing? And he commissioned me ridiculously, and then about a year later we got called to Desert Storm. We're the only fighter wing in the Air Force Reserve that got called to Desert Storm because Norm Schwarzkopf wanted to gross up hogs. And we went and kicked ass, took names. There's nothing like a hog on fire. And so we did all the guts and glory I could do, and I wanted to come home. I'm a Seattle girl, I wanted to come home. And I wrote the commander at the 446 Airlift Wing, and I said, please, please, please. And I begged him, please. I did really good here, please take me, bring me home. And in 1992 he agreed, and I've been here ever since. And I've only ever wanted to be the Chief of Public Affairs at the 446 Airlift Wing, and that's what I am. And I shamelessly brag about people like Dave Jeske, 24 hours a day, you can't stop me. And for those of you who know me a long time, it's always about the Air Force Reserve. The C-17s came in 1999. They're glorious, they're gorgeous. I'm a Boeing commercial. And I don't know that that's legal, but I don't care. It's the most amazing airplane. I will have Army guys that have toys that you can't imagine walk up and go, but you have that airplane. And I'm like, I know. We fly air medical evacuation, we fly airdrop, we fly air land transportation all over the world every day. This isn't your daddy's reserve. And I'm proud, very proud to say we don't have any active duty people in the room, Joe. That we're both Air Force reservists, we're Air Reserve technicians. I retired a year and 10 months. And it's been a hell of a ride. Okay, next.
In the Army near Fort Lewis.
Who's next?
Had a pretty amazing time of it. I got to work on Chinook helicopters for all 6 years of it. Fixed them, flew on them. Spent over 3 of those 6 years in Afghanistan doing it. But definitely don't regret any of it, and I loved every bit of service I've ever had.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, it works.
My name's Hawks Prairie, and right after college in 1985, an Army recruiter came to my school and decided to take me in because I was young, I had no idea what to do. And I specialized in Russian and French, so they decided to send me to Europe for some fun stuff. And after having a lot of headaches politically, and, I decided in late 1989 to say, okay, I'll wait for it now. And I transferred to Arabic language, and I left, and had a nice cushy job at NASA. And come 1990 comes around, they're like, hey, our Arabic specialist, you have to come back in. I was like, okay. And who would have thought Arab was going to be a very important language, but apparently it happened. So I had fun in First Desert Storm, and got to meet a lot of nice generals, and got to play with the Air Force people too. And then that's when I learned, anywhere you are in the world, just find the Air Force Base. It's like a resort. So I got to travel to all over the world, and then I went to San Luis Obispo, Monterey to teach some languages, and which was always a blast being in California. And I was in Southern California in 1999. They decided to send me to OCS for a special project for the Y2K thing, and I did that in September 5th of 2001. I decided to retire again, and I did. It lasted about a week, 9/11. September 12th, I found out I was going on vacation to a beautiful country called Afghanistan. Did that a few years and came back, and then I was on my way to Bosnia, and I got injured. It was a big 200-car pileup in California. I got to meet the sorry, that was the best thing that happened to me. But I've been on over 72 missions, and I've gotten injured a few times, but nothing fatal. But 4 times I got pronounced dead 4 times. It's always been on California or the Washington Highway. I would like to, I've broken just about every bone in my body, but I like to say, it's war-related, but unfortunately I can't. And currently I'm trying to retire again. It's difficult, and apparently in my line of work it's very difficult to do. I see all my colleagues doing right seat, left seats, and changing over and so forth, but I'm getting ready to head back to overseas here for a few weeks, and hopefully it'll be my last time. But if not, one thing I have to say, I've been in the corporate world, and as much as we say the military gets political and stuff, I would never ever change anything. And my closest friends and best friends always been to the military. And don't be afraid if you see a veteran to give him a hug, especially if it's me.
I'm very happy to be here again this year. My name is Ernie Mednick, and I'm here by the help of my beautiful granddaughter. And, she says, tell a little bit of experiences I had. Well, one reason I'm here, I guess, is my birthday is on November 11th, and I was born in 1918 on that date. So I'm kind of proud of that. I'd like to give you greetings here. I was given greetings in November of 1941. I got my greetings signed by the president. Show up to, in other words, I was drafted. And I was a watchmaker in civilian life, and they put me in the ordnance department to repair instruments. So I thought that was great, and especially that the Presidio of Monterey was like a country club. And I was enjoying that for about 6 months there. And then there was orders posted to a bunch of men to go to Alaska. I was sent to Seward, Alaska, and I served 2 years there. And I wanted to get out of there after a couple of years. That was enough. And I got home on a furlough because I had taken all the tests to be a pilot or a navigator or whatever in the Air Force. And I was going to in Colorado as a aviation cadet. And I washed out of that and was sent to the 70th Infantry Division. Whatever. Hell of a note that was. And I started there. We went overseas in November of 1944. The invasion had gone on, and we were doing all right. And they put us, our division, in Luxembourg. And it was there for a while, and they transferred me to the 80th Division. And I got to the 80th Division. Somebody showed me a hole in the ground, and watch for enemies. So I was sleeping one night in that hole, and I was awakened by a big clod of dirt falling on my stomach. I pulled the blanket away and said, "What's going on?" And there was an enemy soldier pointing his Schmeisser pistol at me, and he said, "You're out." That means get up. I knew the war was over. So I was a captain of the German army from January 7th until about April. I managed to get through that in pretty good shape. We got discharged and came back to my home in Salt Lake City, Utah. And on a trip to San Francisco, I got this little gal. And she's a part of it now. And right now I'm just waiting out the day.
Bellevue, Washington, so it's good to be back home. I was commissioned in June of 1990, but prior to that, I did my first 2 years at what used to be known as Bellevue Community College. I was cross-enrolled to the Army ROTC program, and then my last 2 years I transferred over to the University of Washington because I too did not have stellar grades in high school. So, but the community college doesn't care about that kind of thing. So during my time, I was a cadet, sort of a simultaneous membership program in initially in a tank outfit, which doesn't exist anymore, out of Paulsbo, Washington, part of the old Round Out Brigade for the 9th Infantry Division. That's all changed. And I decided that I really didn't like the field a whole lot. I went on a lot of drills and decided that wasn't real fun. So at my summer camp at Fort Lewis, all the branches were advertising. And now you see in ROTC they brainwash. Okay. It's all infantry, armor, field artillery. They might make a mistake. You might hear about combat aviation or engineers, but they don't tell you about ordnance or finance or quartermaster, right? So I'm watching this video of 2 young second lieutenants, a female truck platoon leader, and a guy, hovercraft platoon leader, and he throws up a video of hovercraft flying around on Virginia Beach, 4th story. And I said, wait a minute, this guy lives and works on a beach. That's what I want to do. So I proudly wear the Wheel of Fortune of the Transportation Corps. I was commissioned as Second Lieutenant Transportation in June of '90 and missed Desert Shield, Desert Storm because at that time, very much like now, it was the peace dividend and they were cutting back. So I was lucky just to get active duty. I didn't know it. A lot of people who otherwise would have got active duty were put in the reserves and they had to go find a JOB. So I had one, but it was 11 months later. Missed Desert Shield, Desert Storm. Got to go to Somalia, though. Yeah, what a garden spot that is. You're not missing anything if you don't go to the Horn of Africa. I'm telling you that right now. So my first assignment was Fort Eustis, Virginia, in a boat unit. After that tank outfit, I was in the tugboat company here in that boat battalion in Tacoma. It was National Guard at that time. It's now Reserve Component. So that was a lot of fun. My last 9 months in college. So Fort Eustis, Virginia, got to go to Somalia. Boy, I got some really stupid stories to tell about there. That was before Black Hawk Down, but I managed to wind up in the Green Line quite by accident because we were just stupid and visiting. Yeah, you don't want to. It was the 90s. Okay, this is before the current war. So anyway, so I've been shot at, bombed, and rocketed. So yeah, it was weird. So that was a lot of fun. Worked at Port of Mogadishu, been to Egypt. Thanks to the Army, I can say overall I've seen the pyramids of Egypt, which were ancient in the time of Caesar. And then on my next assignment in Panama, on an exercise we were doing in Belize, I got to see the pyramids of Altunha, Mayan ruin. So I got to go see a lot of different places in the Army. Panama was awesome. That was 3.5 years. Met my beautiful wife there. Got married in 1999. I did a short tour in Ecuador. I've been all throughout Central and South America, so I speak Spanish. People say, where'd you learn the Spanish? I mean, I wasn't the C's and D's in high school and college, you know, so it was my wife. After that, I went to Fort Bliss, Texas, El Paso, commanded a truck company there, AIT, which it trains young soldiers after they're done with their basic training to learn how to drive trucks. After that, I went to Heidelberg, Germany, at headquarters for U.S. Army Europe at Heidelberg. Beautiful. We just closed that place up. They moved. That was Germany's great. I mean, Europe was amazing. Got to go to Italy, to Venice, Vicenza, Hungary, France, Verdun. Wow. After that, I went to Command General Staff Officers College at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. After that, back to Fort Eustis. And then after that, I went to go teach Spanish. Leadership and history in Spanish. Don't ask how that happened. I guess that test I took when I was a young captain back in Panama stayed on my record, and they needed a logistician who had been to Command General Staff Officers course who spoke Spanish, and I was it. And I was livid at the time because it took me off the operational track because there's certain things you want to do, battalion commander, all that stuff didn't happen because that job turned out to be manna from heaven. It was amazing. I had a blast. Fort Benning, I had the best job on Fort Benning at the old school of the Americas, now known as the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation. Don't you love the names we come up with? at our Command and General Staff Officers course, but in Spanish. So I taught officers from Latin America and U.S. guys who could speak Spanish, leadership and history. After that, I had to go suck it up in Hawaii, in Honolulu. I know it's tough. At a sustainment command down there doing something that I would call organizational development, and hated that. And then Afghanistan showed up. And people go, Afghanistan, I said, that's the best thing I ever did in the Army. I deployed to be the Joint Transportation Officer, which I was very excited because I was not doing transportation. Very long, bizarre story, very short. I wound up being the personal advisor to a 3-star general who's now a 4-star general. I think a little something to do with that. General Rodriguez, he's now the Africa Command Commander. And so I prepared him on his senior NATO and U.S. logistician visits. So ambassadors, chiefs of defense service, it was amazing. And he was a great leader. I was there, and what was nice about it is I got to choose to do that job because I was basically rented help. Sorry about that. Boy, that's embarrassing. I was basically rented help, and they needed people, so I said I'd like to stay and work with you guys. And they wanted me to stay a second year, and it was because it was the team, you know. But I was right at 19 years. That was not my path. It was time, you know, family considerations, and Fort Lewis was open. And this is not an easy location to get. I avoided this place because I wanted to go places I hadn't been before. And so I said, sir, you know, I love you, but you know, I got a good plan. So I finished up here at I-Corps headquarters, and most Army people are very surprised when I tell them that not only have I never served in a division or a division down trace unit, I've never served in a corps, other than my last assignment, or a corps down trace unit. And most people look at me and say, man, what the Army were you in? Well, as a transporter, you can legitimately do that. All my line unit time was at Fort Eustis, Virginia, in those terminal and port operations units. And I just had a series of very bizarre assignments. But a lot of fun, and I got to work with some amazing people on some great teams. 20 years and 3 months, not that anybody was counting. And I retired in September 2011, and it's great to be back
Wanted to
home.
go in the Marines, but then they told me I had to cut my hair. So I went to the Army, and I had really good ASVAB tests, and so I could have been, oh gosh, newspaper, I could have been broadcasting, I could have done nursing, all kinds of different stuff, but I told them I wanted to be airborne. So I guess there was a shortage of riggers. So I was really surprised when I went to jump school and found out that there was a whole bunch of different people doing different things, and I ended up being a rigger. So I packed parachutes, personnel, heavy drop, and did maintenance on them. Let's see. It was exciting. I wanted to go see the world. When I was in AIT training, I got recycled 3 times because I saw that they were sending people over to Vicenza and Germany, and then they told me, well, your orders have already been cut, you're going to Fort Bragg. So, yeah, nasty. So, I served in Fort Bragg during Desert Storm, and I was there I enlisted in 88, and I served till 91. But I did really have a good time. I had the opportunity to jump out of a Chinook tailgate, the C-130, C-141s. I can't remember the name of the helicopter. It looks like a little,
Skycraft?
yes, that's actually pretty fun. And did a tailgate C-17. So it was, wait, no, C-5, sorry, C-5, that's it. And those were really fun too. But my main job was personnel parachutes, maintenance, and then I helped with the heavy drop, and that's really exciting because we did howitzers, and we would do the big tanks, and I mean it's pretty incredible how those work.
Really big
Parachute, put it this way, these parachutes are 100 feet in diameter, and they weigh 300 pounds. And for one of the big vehicles, it would take 8 parachutes that we would rig on top of it. We only lost 1 howitzer. So it came in barrel first. But that's it. It was fun. So
I'm the one that breaks the helicopters and I can't fix. I got in about 2005, and I'm currently CW3. I was at Fort Rucker for a little bit, and then I went over to Savannah and enjoyed Hunter Army Airfield for a few years. That's where me and my wife were at. I served in Iraq For 15 months, I was there for the nice long surge. Did everywhere from moving transport, people, supplies, to assaults of the Al-Qaeda or whoever was over there. Helping with the, also some personnel recovery that was there too. We didn't get to do a whole lot of that, but trying to find some guys. Then we came back and I came to Jimmy on.
My name's Barney Cunningham, and I knew when Greg Stevens asked me to go on my circuit trip.
It always is.
I enlisted in the Air Force in August 1967. Fought the Battle of Black Wing in San Antonio, Texas. And at the end of basically, so well, you can fill out this wish list and go anywhere you want. I mean, anywhere but Texas. So I got stationed in Del Rio, Texas, off the Air Force Base. Del Rio, 6 miles from the Mexican border. I was there for, I think, 9 months, and I went to personnel and said, I'd like to make another wish list. And they said, okay. So I put down Vietnam, anywhere, and I was gone. I was stationed at Cameron Bay. I was a flight or a fuel specialist. I did in-flight refueling in KC-135. I flew in a lot of planes back and forth. I was there for about another 8 or 9 months, and I decided I was bored with that. So I said, can I do something else? And they said, sure, we got this job called forward air controller. So I did that. That was real interesting. For that 4 months, I had to extend. And I was ready to come back home, so they gave me orders. Guess where to? Del Rio, Texas. I extended in Vietnam. Then I finally came to McCord in 1971, and I was discharged there. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my name is Wally Lucas, served in the United States Army. I enlisted in 1973 up at the Dakota Mall area. Basically, the first duty station was in Mannheim, Germany. Met my wife there. Other duty stations in Europe was Stuttgart, and I always extended after 3 years.
Yeah.
And also the last duty station was Karlsruhe. I was a unit supply sergeant, traveled all over, basically provide, at the last, as far as the Desert Storm, when I was stationed back here at Fort Lewis, I was a gentleman on Norfolk with the arms room and retraining reservists coming back in. I was not the trainer, but I was in charge of that supply room with all kinds of good weapons. So basically, just more or less, no regrets. From 73 to 85, I had a medical condition arise, changed my goal for 20 years. Overall, in 1993, with the braking service, when they were drawing down, I ended up with 15 and a half years with the United States Army. So it's been a great run, and I just enjoy helping other veterans out in the field that I've run through over the years. 6 years ago, I worked out at Madigan Army Medical Center, spent 13 and a half years on the federal government side, and decided, stress and other things medically, it's time to walk away and take care of myself. So with that, thank you.
My name is Richard Bukowski, and I was in the United States Army. I had good grades growing up, and I was a student at City College of New York. And since I was the smartest person that I knew, I decided to take a term off. And I got home one night, and it looked like the whole family died. And my father said, "You got some mail." And it was, of course, it was greetings, and I was now in the United States Army. I did basic training in Georgia, and I went to Fort Meade, Maryland afterwards, which was First Army headquarters and considered a country club. And those people that really know me would find this amusing. I was made a computer operator. We worked on the computer was the RCA Spectra 70 series, which is not in existence anymore. And I was in Fort Meade for 9 months, and then we went to Vietnam. And I was real lucky. I lived in a hotel in Saigon for 9 months, and we were waiting for the computers to come. The computers were supposed to arrive like 90 days after we were there, and we went down to the docks of Saigon to unload the ship, and they left the computers on the dock in the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa someplace. So we never received the computers. And right after TET, right after TET, they moved us out of Saigon to 2nd Field Force Headquarters, which was just a tremendous place. And my company was selected to do guard duty, and none of us really ever did guard duty. And I was selected to guard the civilian female headquarters at the time, at night. And I was told that a general was supposed to drop off his secretary. They were coming back from Korea, and under no circumstances was I allowed to let him into the compound. Well, of course, an hour went by and 2 hours went by, and I said, the hell with it. I sat down on the ground and put my rifle up against the fence, and I probably fell asleep, and all of a sudden there was headlights shining in my eyes, and I jumped up and put back my hat and lifted up my rifle, and here was the general with the secretary, and he said, I'll be right out. And I wasn't going to challenge him, of course. And another hour goes by, and 2 hours go by. And I sat down again, and I said, the hell with this. And finally he came out, and he comes out with this little pad and pencil, and he said, soldier, what's your name? And I gave him my name, and he said, where are you from? And I said, well, sir, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. And he said to me, I'll make sure that you will be stationed in Fort Hamilton, Brooklyn, when you leave the service. And I said, then, sir, when I leave Vietnam, I'm out of the service. And he said, better yet, he said, because I wasn't much of a soldier, obviously. But I'm one of the few people that I really can't complain about the year that I spent in Vietnam, because I really didn't do anything, and I had a great time. And I went to Bangkok twice and to Taipei once, and it was just a very rewarding experience, I guess.
I'm Dick Stewart. I went into the service at 17 in 1965. I thought I was doing good in school, but my teacher basically announced to the class while I was leaving that, oh, Vic's going over to Vietnam and he's going to die. So that was really fun. Anyways, during my Army career, I was an engineer, and then from there I became in the cab units on tanks, and also in armor. My last part at Fort Hoods was the armor unit there, 277. Anyways, I medically retired out at 16, spent 2 years, 6 months in Vietnam. Decided, well, when I was in Vietnam, just like one of the gentlemen said, the Air Force always had it made. When you went, they had a movie theater. We never seen anything like that. They had a swimming pool and all that. So anyways, I decided, well, I'm going to go to work as a civilian for the Air Force. So I worked there for almost 28 years. Over at the 446 First in training for about 7 years, then went up to the 62nd Manpower Office and was a management consultant for the Air Force. Other than that, that's about my military career.
I want to thank the Rotarians, and Randy, I didn't know that this was going to be here. Thank you for inviting me, I appreciate that. After that presentation, how could you not feel proud to be an American citizen, never mind a vet? Thank you all for your service. My name is John O'Callahan. I was in the United States Navy. I'm a Vietnam era vet, and to me that distinction is very important. I never get to put boots on the ground. But I did spend 6 years in the Navy as a signalman. For those, that's right, for those that know who I am, silent communication doesn't quite fit, does it? 7-4, flashing light, flag hoist, that's what I did. I served on USS Bazelon. I decommissioned her. That was probably the best Navy duty I ever had. You worked 2-3 hours a day, you were gone the rest of the time. It was cool, except for your 4-hour watch, and then you were gone the rest of the time. From there, I went to the USS Kuntz, guided missile destroyer, DDG-40. We went from 365, how about that, one person per day of the year, 365-man crew, down to about a 245. That's how efficient that ship was. Then I got to watch some of the new Spruance class come in, and that crew was cut in half. We're talking about Navy technology that just made things so much easier to be part of the Navy. I was proud of my time that I spent in the Navy. I only spent 6 years, 3 active reserve. I did a little time on the USS Kennedy coming back from the Med. The guy, it's called cross-deck duty. The guy that took my place, again, I was a signalman. Cross-deck duty is when somebody from one ship goes to work on another ship, and the guy that has the exact same rate takes your place on your ship. 7 days out, my captain is senior to the captain of the USS Kennedy. I get racked out of my bed, and he goes, "You got 30 minutes to pack and beat it." And I go, "Oh man, what did I do?" And he goes, "No, it wasn't your fault, it was our guy." The guy that they sent over there I don't know how he did it, he actually got written up on AWOL, on board a destroyer, a Fram 2 destroyer. Those things are small. He got written up on 5 major charges, so I got the great fun of being heloed from the Kennedy back to my ship. They forgot to tell me when they were dropping me down the line that somebody was going to grab my legs to break the static. Scared the heck out of me, I'm telling you. It was a great run. I'm just spinning around, getting the view in, and then all of a sudden somebody's grabbing me over there. Scared me to death. But I want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you, Randy, for inviting me. And I am proud to be an American, as I know everyone here is.
Okay, we want Dave Jeske to tell us a little bit about his career and service. Colonel Jeske grew up in Iowa on a farm, went to Iowa State University, graduated in international studies. He actually entered the Navy, and he's got 20 years of service. In the Navy, he was a combat rescue.
If you don't mind, I'll use this one.
I tend to wander around, so this just means that you can hear me when I wander around. A couple of quick admin things kind of before we start. Anna has already pre-briefed me not to talk long, and that she has some way of turning off the electricity if I go too long. So rest assured. You cannot sing it her and the next thing, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got here, but I'm still kind of curious myself in a lot of cases. So maybe if you kind of figure it out as we go along, please come with me at the end and let me know how it happened. The next thing, though, is you'll notice that I have glasses in my hand as well because I'm getting old, as my wife says. But I do have some quotes I want to share with you a little bit later. And again, Anna has told me if I don't get the quotes right, I have to walk back. And I'm in the Air Force. I don't walk anywhere. So I'm going to have to use the glasses when I read. All I want to tell you about myself, though, that kind of gives you an idea of how I became a combat rescue officer. And for those of you who don't know, if you have heard of the PJs, if you've heard of the pararescue folks in the Air Force, I'm an officer PJ. I say that with kind of that look on my face because we're combat rescue officers. So anytime we have to try to explain it, and you have to go, I'm an officer, PJ, then it's kind of like admitting I can't explain what I do. So if you know what those guys do, then you can figure out what I do. But here's what I want to tell you about how I got to where I was. As Randy mentioned, I'm a graduate of Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa. Most people don't know where that is. I'm not sure I can find it today. But I was an international studies major. And when you studied international studies at Iowa State, you had to pick a geographic area. And true story. So I picked South Asia because nothing ever happened in South Asia. That was essentially Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan. 20 years ago, nothing happened there. So I thought, it's got to be the safest thing in the world. Nobody knows anything about Afghanistan. What could ever happen there? Safe, safe, safe. So I like to think of that as critical mistake number one. Then, there were only 10 people in my entire program because, again, who wants to study places that nothing ever happens? You contrast that with the European studies. I think they had 120 people in it. So then came the time where we had to pick, you had to study for a semester overseas in one of those countries. And so it came the day where we had to choose what country we wanted to study in. And I kind of mentioned there were 10 people in that class. There was one just really, really, really pretty girl in the whole program. And she sat right in front of me. So when they asked her, what country do you want to go do your study abroad in? And she said, Pakistan. And my first thought was, oh my God, who would want to go to Pakistan and why? And so then the instructor turns to me and says, and David, what country do you want to go study in? And all I could think about was a cute girl sitting right in front of me. And so I said, what a coincidence. I want to go to Pakistan too. I like to think of that as critical mistake number two. So years later, now flash forward maybe 10 years, give or take, I'm in the Navy, I'm a combat rescue officer in the Navy. And the Navy decides it's going to do some operations in, of all places, Pakistan. And so they do a quick research through the records. Have any combat rescue officers ever done any time in Pakistan? That would be me. So I got to do about 6 months in Pakistan. Really, and I like to trace it all the way back to critical mistake number two. There was a cute girl in my class, and I ended up doing it. Here I am 20 years later, 5 combat tours, 2 in Pakistan. Critical mistake number 2. Let that be a lesson. That goes over a lot better when I do high school classes, because you can see them looking at each other like, yeah, I'm never doing anything that girl ever says. Good advice. Very, very good advice. So, what PJs and what combat rescue officers do, has anybody seen I think it's the Smithsonian Channel, does the TV show Combat Rescue, where they've gone behind the scenes of the combat rescue unit, which is very interesting because although the show is very true in what it shows, what it portrays, the one thing it doesn't show is, and I think some of the veterans will know what I mean when I say this, is typically combat rescue is 23 hours of sheer boredom, punctuated by an hour of sheer terror. And that's not for our patients, that's just for us. And that's a little bit like what combat rescue is. You never know when the call is going to come. You never know what's going to be at the other end of the call. You never know if it's going to be an opposed rescue or a non-opposed rescue. You never know if the bad guys are going to be shooting at you. You never know if the patient's going to be, or the person that you're rescuing, you never know if they're going to be alive, if they're going to be dead, if they're going to be injured. You just never know. Which really prepared me now, as Randy mentioned, I'm married, so it kind of prepares me when I get home, because I really never know what I'm going to get. So it's good preparation. It's life preparation right there. So, but really, what I want to take, and again, I promised Anna I wouldn't talk long, but what I really want to talk about is, so why do we do it? You heard You heard all the veterans today talk with great pride, deserved pride, about why they did it, why they're here, and what they gained from it. You heard some folks talk about it being, the best times of their lives. Well, why do we do it? And it's interesting because as Rotarians, I pronounce it right, it's kind of a minor achievement. I take the small victories. You understand service. So why do we do it? It's not because of the great pay. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
That's not going to do it. It's not because of the fancy, great locations we get to go. What was it, Del Rio, Texas? Horrible.
Twice. It was the
Twice. So it's clearly, can I get an amen that it's not the location? It's not the location. So why do we do it? Why? How many years do you have in that?
37.
37. What keeps Anna getting up every morning and going to work?
Must be a cute boy.
I can assure you it's not that. I can assure you. But what makes it do it? And it's obviously service. It's service to something greater than ourselves. This is where the quotes come in. Why would we possibly be willing to go to war, to risk our lives, to fight, as I think the good book says, there's no greater cause than man giving up his life for his brother. And in combat rescue, we probably take that particular motto to heart. For those of you who do know what our motto is, it's so others might live. And it's something that we get very passionate about, because it takes a unique kind of person to, when an explosion goes off, to run towards it. That when shots are fired, to run towards it. That tend to thrive on chaos, where others see chaos. Again, that kind of helps me with my home life, but I don't want to get into that detail here. Don't tell them that. You never heard it. So what makes us do that? What makes a combat rescue guy a combat rescue guy? What makes an artilleryman an artillery, or a transportation officer a transportation officer? And like I said, it's that service. It's that service to something greater than ourselves. The writer, no mocking for the glasses. George Washington actually once said, no one aboard, God, you've got glasses on, I need you to hold it. No one abhors war more than the soldier, but yet we still do it. I never got, what do they call the letters? I never got the greetings. I was dumber than that. I, much like Anna, went into a recruiting office and volunteered to run into bullets. He didn't mention that. It's funny, we could do an entire talk probably just on things the recruiters told us.
That's a great
I don't know. Again, for a combat rescue officer, it's a little different. Do you like to swim? Do you like to spend a lot of time on the water? Well, yeah, who doesn't? Do you like to, fly and, be in helicopters a lot? Well, yeah. What they didn't tell you is you're going to fly in the helicopter at night over oceans and jump out into the water. It's kind of the details. I always get to the details. So again, I gotta keep coming back to, but why do we do this? And again, like I said, it's that service. It's something greater than ourselves. So what is that that's greater than ourselves? If you think about it, in sort of times of old, it was armies would get together. The Romans could create an army that was 40, 50,000 people. But what was the promise that those Roman soldiers had? Plunder. Right? They could become rich doing it. But we don't get mercenaries. I can tell you, what is it now? I've been in 3, 4 wars. I don't know, kind of lose track. Again, 5 combat operations. I have never once been offered plunder. So I kind of think I've done something wrong there. But it's not for territory. You know, we don't go to war for territory anymore. It's not like Germany is the 51st or 52nd state. It's not like Japan is the 53rd state. We're not in it for territory anymore. So, where do all those things fit in? Ethan Allen once said, "We seek not plunder, nor territory, nor to subjugate. We seek rather the will to be left to our own failings, to live and die as free men." So that's that cause. That's that cause that's greater than ourselves. That's why we do it. Sometimes we don't even know how or why it fits in. I know as a combat rescue guy, we know that our country has made a promise. And you all are really a testament to that promise. That as the recruiters talk to you, and maybe even more importantly, as the recruiters talk to your families and say, hey, we want you to join the Army, or we want you to join the Air Force. And what they look at your parents and say, no matter what, we'll bring him home. It doesn't matter if he is shot down, if his convoy gets in trouble, if he's a Marine that's taken on the beach. We will do everything we can as the richest and most powerful nation in the world to bring him back to you, dead or alive. I don't know if you knew, but there's no other country in the world, none, not the Russians, not the Chinese, not our allies, the French and the English, or the British rather. There's no one else has combat rescue. No one. As little British kids think about joining the military, they don't have that promise. They don't have the promise that if you get captured, we'll bring you back. We'll send people into harm's way and bring you back. But the American public does. And that's one of the reasons why, when we join the military, we have that sense of confidence that my government, my country, my people will do everything they can to bring me back. I'm merely, and the people in my community in the military, are merely the promise fulfilled. I have had Army soldiers, I've had Navy sailors, and I've had Air Force airmen literally die in my hands. And it's the kind of thing that makes you want to know, why do I do this? Because in many ways, we in my community consider that a failure. Because we believe, and you probably heard this on TV, heard it on the radio, heard it wherever, that if we can get to them in that first hour, that golden hour, we can bring you back from anything. But I'll always remember the first lesson, the first day, in the first hour of my medical training. All combat rescue guys, we're essentially paramedics, we're flying paramedics. And the very first thing, the very first instructor told us was, some people are going to die, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I can tell you, I and everyone else in that class went, no, we can bring anybody back if we can get him in that first hour. Does anybody here know how many casualties, deaths we've had in Afghanistan?
3,000.
Just under. Yeah. But most folks know we would lose more than that in single battles in World War II.
Right.
Because it's that promise. It's that promise that we'll expend whatever we can to bring you back and to bring you back whole. Probably more so now than at any other time in our nation's history, and I know in our military's history. We're trying to fulfill that promise like never before. I know in Afghanistan, because I've done it, in Afghanistan, we would sit alert on one of the air bases. And from the first moment the call is made, from anywhere in Afghanistan, any of the far corners of the entire country, we can be on the ground with a prospective patient within that golden hour. Anywhere in the country. Because that's, again, that promise fulfilled. From that moment, we can administer life-saving care. We can bring them back to a military medical treatment facility and have them airlifted, likely to Germany. And they can be on the ground in Germany within 6 hours of the event. 6 hours of the end. I can tell you there are very, very few things that would cause the death of an individual if we can get them to Ramstein in 6 hours. Again, it's that promise fulfilled. But that doesn't really again speak to why. You know, what would make me want to do that? You know, what would make me want to risk those? You know, we've been shot at, we've been bombed, I've had people throw rocks at me. It's less effective after the bombing. I was stationed in Pakistan when the Marriott Hotel was bombed. Now, what most folks don't know, so if anybody ever asks, you didn't hear this from me. What most folks don't know is the Marriott Hotel was our transient lodging point. Anybody who was stationed in Pakistan would transit through the Marriott Hotel, stay their first week there. We used to joke about it because it was your way to get introduced to Pakistan. So you came out of it with this false sense of, it's not so bad. Because it was the Marriott Hotel. And then things pretty much went downhill from there. But everyone who came into Pakistan, any military personnel would spend their first week at the Marriott Hotel. And the bad guys knew that. So they bombed the hotel. With a bomb the size of a small, like, bread truck. All on video. And it left a crater where the truck had been about this, probably, I want to say 20 yards deep in pavement. And about 40 yards across. The front of the hotel, just gone. Just gone. I had 3 guys who had just reported for duty, that worked for me. They'd reported for duty about 3 days before. That had been in the hotel. Despite that, typically these kind of things happen to rescue officers. So obviously I'd known that the bomb had went off because where I lived was in a safe house. Even after all this time, I can't say that without putting the air quotes on it. Safe house. Because it was neither a house nor safe. But it was about 4 blocks from the Marriott Hotel, and it blew all the windows out of that side of the house that I lived in. So you knew immediately when it went off that it was big, it was bad, and it was, in a sense, that your life would never be safe. Much like 9/11 to the country. So we immediately rushed to the hotel. Myself and the other U.S. service members that shared my house with me. We all rushed to the Marriott Hotel. And we spent the next 56 hours combing through the wreckage of the Marriott Hotel, looking for U.S. servicemen. Well, and frankly, and our British, Canadian, New Zealand patriots. We combed through the wreckage looking for either survivors or remains because of the promise fulfilled. So, why do we do it? What's the point? What was it? Well, I never heard it expressed better than this. Every man fights for his children, for his wife, his parents, his brothers and sisters. The high ideals of every soldier are no higher than the smile on his little girl's face. And so, Dwight Eisenhower. That's really what sold it for me, because I have a daughter. And I don't go to Afghanistan to get rich, and I don't do combat rescue to subjugate other people and to gain territory for my country. I go to Afghanistan because of the smile on my little girl's face. And I don't ever want her to have to sift through the rubble of the Marriott Hotel looking for her brothers or her sisters. That's why we do this. That's what service to our country is about. And that's why we all join the military. It's really about, I want to do this so that other people don't. And if you go back to the thread of what every single veteran in the room said, that's really what was at the core of it. That I need to do this so that somebody else doesn't. And that's why I chose to join the military. And I keep wandering this way, but I have a specific reason. And that's because before I let go of the mic, sir, I just want to shake your hand. Thank you.
Thank you all the veterans. Corey?
So we have, for being our speaker today, we have our Hawks Prairie cone. It's got our logo on the one side, and it's got our homecoming statue on the other, and I just wanted to thank you. Thank you. For being here today. And I also wanted to thank Randy for going ahead. I asked him, hey, can you go ahead and take care of our veterans celebration today? And he did a great job. And thank you very much. I know we have a few special moments today. Any special moments?
Shucks, that's good.